we'll try to be as brief as possible, but in our continuing series on Convergence, Sue, Chris, and I are going to be talking about the three topics that were in the last training session. And one of the things that we were kind of confused, or we were talking about yesterday, is okay. So what does cloud, business Wi-Fi, managed services, and CPE really have in common? And and how do these three or four items really fit together? And in talking about and brainstorming a little bit about it yesterday, really come to a conclusion that the face of IT has really changed over the last, I would say the last 5 years, but maybe as many as 10. And I think today the CIO has to adapt from thinking of legacy, whether that's servers, routers, phone systems, the widgets, the network, to really becoming a business partner and really part of the C-suite. And that change really not only impacts the CIO, but also ultimately the entire IT department. And so, in kind of tying these four items together, just thinking through real quick, what is IT and the CIO thinking about today? They're certainly becoming more customer-centric. They're not thinking about those platforms, but they're really thinking about their data. They're thinking about how do we make it more user-friendly, more mobile, access from anywhere, anytime, on any device. They're really more concerned with the data, the speed of data, the analytics of the data, and they're really focused more on the trends and the threats, and then who to partner with for them ultimately as a company to hit their business goals, and then I say obvious, but the hiring and the development of talent within IT. So the first piece that I'm going to cover is that of the cloud. Sue is going to go into managed Wi-Fi. Chris is going to go into managed services and follow up with a discussion around CPE. So in talking about the cloud, thought about what is it, and I think simply cloud computing is the delivery of services, servers, storage, databases, the networking, software, phone systems today over the internet, and it's a continual growing piece of the business. And here's a number of stats from Microsoft and Amazon, and I think the big message is simply that you look in the upper right, cloud in general is going to be a continual growth engine, anticipated to be in 140 million, 150 million by 2020. So it's not going away anytime soon. And how does Sprint play into this area? So kind of giving a little bit of a background. What are companies using cloud for? Before we can really talk about how do we intersect with it. And we're talking about the creation of application and services, storage, backup, recovery of data, hosting websites, streaming video, delivering software on demand, and then again the analytics around data.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
how does the term or the general characteristics of using cloud differ from the old days of people talking about hosted solutions, data center solutions, right? Is it just the new buzzword, or is there more being added in these components as you're describing?
That's a great question, actually. I think cloud has become somewhat of a buzzword, but with a distinct piece, and you brought it up. The customers and businesses aren't hosting those websites and applications in their own infrastructure today. You don't see too many businesses in certain industries. It's whether it's financial and some, but you don't see businesses today building new data centers. They're moving it off of their prem into somebody else's house. Okay, they don't want that infrastructure. Kind of like what I was saying. They want to get away from hugging routers and switches and servers and focus on the actual things that drive business. I mean, that's my take on it. If anybody else has any input. All right, so when we talk about it a little bit, and we start thinking about, all right, what are the benefits of cloud, moving it off prem. The first thing that we talk about obviously is cost, and this becomes an as a service model. So what businesses today are wanting to do is pay as you go for what you need when you need it. If you're building your own infrastructure and you're building your own data center, you have to factor in capacity plus for spikes. So you tend to overbuild, and so businesses are moving away from that model, focusing on what they need when they need it and pay for only what they use. And it allows them to deliver things to the market faster in a global economy, with high reliability and performance. So I mean, that's really the key attribute is the pay for what I need when I need it, as I need it. Three real types of cloud that we're probably the most familiar with is software as a service, which focusing on the end user. Google is a good example of that. Salesforce, we all love it. We all love it dearly. We talk about infrastructure as a service, which is Amazon AWS, which is the most common. And in that type of environment, Amazon is offering the virtual servers, the infrastructure, and the storage to both to the customer. And then the third, really, platform of a service, Microsoft Azure, focusing really more with the developers. They're not only offering the hardware but the software as well as the middleware, to the enterprise, moving away from on-prem, to third party. A term that's coming up today is a new term, a little bit, called bare metal computing, which really is a new platform as a service where, and it really will give, rather than being virtual machines, enterprise gets their actual own hardware, and in a third party premises. The trend continues. Go ahead.
Can you explain that a little more, bare metal?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, SoftBank owns a piece, and I know Sprint is beginning some development work with a company called Packet. Okay, and you'll see it in the SoftBank decks. So what Packet, what enterprise customers do, and what Packet delivers, whether you're in let's compare it to Microsoft or AWS for a minute. In those two environments, the gear at Microsoft or Amazon are virtual. So a customer is virtually sharing that gear with any number of different clients, because that machine is virtualized, okay, and it's they're getting space on Microsoft or Amazon's gear, but it's shared. It's a shared tenant type of environment. What Bare Metal is now taking and doing is providing a customer a machine that's dedicated to that customer.
So you're saying whatever processing, storage, whatever is dedicated, there's no segmentation on that box. It's a dedicated piece of equipment.
Correct. To you. Right. Now, you don't own it. You still are renting it on an as-need basis, but everything that you size it for what you need, and you're not virtualized, segmented with other customers.
So isn't that like dedicated hosting, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, exactly. But the one step further is that it's, it is as a service.
Right.
Again, you're still paying for what you need when you need it, as you need it. Okay. I don't know if there's any other thoughts or questions there. So again, now this just really kind of talks a little bit about the types of cloud, public, which we're familiar with. Again, Microsoft, Amazon type of environment. Private, where large enterprises could be turning up their own cloud, and customers or their businesses are accessing data from anywhere at any time, etc. It becomes it's private because the infrastructure is on a private network as opposed to a public network or the internet, and then a combination of the two being a hybrid type of environment. These are things that you'll hear, as your customers are explaining their cloud environment. So, what's the intersection between Sprint and the cloud? What are we doing, in this space? And so, really, there are two pieces that we are doing with the Cloud Exchange and Direct Connect. In the on the left side with Equinix, we are providing our customers a port on the MPLS network. So, a customer that is a MPLS customer today with Sprint. We're providing them a port within Equinix, who then, through multiple VPNs, can touch this list, like 6 or 7, but that list continues to grow. And then the second piece is, again, a Sprint MPLS customer. We have the ability of directly connecting to Microsoft and to Amazon facilities nationwide, and we're expanding with them as well globally. The key piece is that it has to be a Sprint MPLS customer. This becomes just another port on their network. Any questions in that area? All right, and then kind of some of the what are the features and benefits of it. We have the ability to connect from 2 meg to 10 gig. It's secure. It's private as any connection within a MPLS network would look like. And then when we're sitting with our customers, what are we asking? What are we listening for? And I think the kind of flipping this a little bit is thinking about the fact that they are in a cloud environment. Are they concerned about security? Are they concerned about the performance of their applications, which leads into discussion of Sprint's network capabilities, and then therefore our ability to connect to the cloud either through Equinix or on a direct connect basis. Any questions in the cloud area before I turn it over to Sue? Confused everybody. Good.
Oops. Let's go back one. Somehow. Am I controlling it, or are you controlling it, Rick?
Nope.
All right. Well, I guess, the previous slide.
Wait. Am I controlling it? Wait.
You're going.
There we go. I guess I'm controlling it.
Okay. I'll just let you know then, Chris. Thank you.
Sure.
So business Wi-Fi, what is it? I mean, everybody on the call knows what Wi-Fi is. Everybody uses it. Business Wi-Fi is focused on a specific design for your business customer. It's a private and fully managed Wi-Fi network, and using Sprint CPE and access points. Access points is going to be key in the discussion that we're going to have on this. A couple of industries to keep in mind that are focused on this. Retail. I know many of you have heard me hear about Panera Bread, and hotels. This is big for hotels and their lobbies. So what are the key features? I'm not touching anything, Chris.
Sorry.
The key features I had just listed out, basically the components of the Wi-Fi environment. What is it? Well, first of all, what are we trying to address? And second of all, what does the infrastructure look like? So what we're addressing in the Wi-Fi space, there's lots more devices, a lot more bandwidth-intensive applications, lots more users. Rick just got through talking about all the different applications that are being uploaded to the cloud, and so that has come to the handsets, to laptops, any kind of screen that you might have. And on the left side, I've just listed what it takes to put a business Wi-Fi in. So the access points are key to the pricing structure. At Sprint, we're offering this with no capital investment. It's a service that we bill for on a monthly basis. Right now, I'll mention that our primary partner is Ruckus. I have heard sometime down the road we're going to be offering the Cisco platform, which is Meraki, but for now, a lot of what I'll focus on is the Ruckus platform. So we offer professional services that includes the survey, the configuration, installation, it's got the firewall, SLAs, and optional services including guest Wi-Fi sign-in. Everybody's done that, checking into a hotel or going to a retail outlet. So, next slide, Chris. Benefits of business Wi-Fi, as I just mentioned, it's OpEx-focused pricing, eliminates the need for heavy capital investment, and for as far as the business, letting Sprint come in and offer this service removes a huge IT burden. And it's really leveraging IT as a growth engine instead of them focusing on worrying about scoping it out and what equipment do we need and how many APs, et cetera, et cetera. Let us come in and do it, and then this allows IT to basically operate as a revenue generator for the business. The big thing to keep in mind when you're looking at a business Wi-Fi is that the solution ensures a stable and high-performing Wi-Fi. Very, very important for the businesses. It's very critical for their employees, for their clients, and for their partners. Questions so far? Okay. I thought this would be a good pictorial explanation of some of the things that the retail outlets, such as Panera Bread, might be looking at. They're looking to have a very good customer experience. This is a way to get customers in the door. Many people go there to have their business meetings. They know they can open their laptops and jump on Panera's Wi-Fi. So this is actually a very important business solution that they would like to have a stable and high-performing solution. And do it all as well as controlling their costs. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead, Chris. So again, the Ruckus solution, and to piggyback on what I just talked about, controlling high costs. So our Ruckus Cloud solution, it's important to keep in mind that the APs with the Ruckus solution can handle more clients per access point than Meraki. I'm not sure of the exact number, but I think it might be as much as twice as many. So that means a lot in terms of keeping the total cost of ownership down. The less APs that are needed for the solution, that lowers your cost of infrastructure and maintenance. Then you've got your guest access, very easy to use social login to get onto the Wi-Fi. And then we offer 24/7 support and security updates. One very important feature of the Ruckus solution, and we've had discussions with Panera about this, are the customer insights. And to hark back to what Rick was mentioning in his discussion, the analytics are what businesses are after. And so Ruckus provides very nice reports and trending data that customers can use. And I'll go into that on the next slide, Chris. Well, I guess in a couple of slides. But before we get there, I wanted to put this up because as we're talking about the criticality of having a well-performing Wi-Fi, these are 3 areas of focus in regard to that. And so, for example, on the right side, we've got the problem of high loss. And so an example of that is, I know there's a hotel chain that we're talking to here at Sprint. And the problem that they're having is they have this great Wi-Fi that they spent all kinds of money on and they've invested in, and they've got it in their hotel lobbies, and many of their hotels are in downtown areas where there is might be a homeless population that what's happening is they basically camp outside the hotel because they've figured out they can hop on the hotel Wi-Fi and get to the web on their phones. Well, so what's happening is they're having leakage and loss of the Wi-Fi that they've paid for their hotel customers, and then all of a sudden they don't have enough capacity for their for their customers. So there's actually a way that Ruckus can, in the design, make sure that there is no Wi-Fi loss, that all of that stays within the perimeter of the hotel so that their investment is there to benefit their customers. Their high-density example, I think everybody here has probably been at a major sporting event where you're trying to, look at your phone and check the web, and so that's another great use case. Any questions? Okay. Go ahead, Chris. And earlier what I was mentioning is, so this is an example of a customer insights report with the Ruckus solution, the customer has they've got a control center where they can go in and pull these types of reports down. Just gives them more insight on giving them a better understanding of, when are their customers accessing the Wi-Fi, how long are they staying, lots of interesting insights that they can get from this. Okay, go ahead, Chris. And this slide here, I wanted to just give a picture of the main competitors and break it down by the main features that customers and we're looking at, going from Ruckus on the far left to our main competitors, just to give you an idea of the things that you should focus on. But I think that probably the key takeaway for this business Wi-Fi discussion is as I started out, everybody understands Wi-Fi, everybody knows what it is, but I was hoping to give just a little bit more granularity so that when you're sitting in front of your customers or prospects and this comes up, and remembering that the Wi-Fi can be critical to them for bringing in additional business or just supporting their employees, just some things to think about, and invite us in if you see an opportunity.
Hey, Sue, who's that in the first column? I don't recognize the logo.
That's Ruckus.
Oh, that's Ruckus.
That's
okay.
Ruckus.
So comparing
and then Cisco, Meraki, and Aerohive and Aruba. So we do have a gentleman, John Gateway, with Ruckus. They've actually been bought by Aris, but he's offered to actually come and sit in on customer meetings. He's based in Kansas City, so I highly recommend if you're out there and you're in any of these discussions to reach out to your wireline counterpart, and we'll get something set up. Any other questions? Okay. Take it away, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Sue. So before we get into the definition of managed services, I thought it would be helpful for us just to kind of reflect on, what's driving some of the requirements for the need for, services outside of, cloud and data center. And, going back to what Rick was sharing earlier in his changing face of IT slide, really what is dictating the requirement for organizations to be more lean and agile is the fact that applications are, that's the core, piece of their business. If employees are not able to get their applications and they're not able to do their work, and so what companies have been doing is they've been, over the last 15 years, they've been outsourcing their data centers and their infrastructure to other data center providers and then more recently cloud service providers. And so with that, no longer does the traditional IT staff have access to the equipment and the systems that they traditionally did in having an on-premise data center. So now what you're seeing is with the growing adoption of globalization and workforce globalization, companies have offices across the world. Large enterprises have offices all over the world, and so it's very difficult for traditional IT staff to maintain and support those types of networks. And so what's been born out of that is managed services, and what that is when a company basically outsources either some or all of their IT support and management responsibilities to a managed service provider. And so that's really what the definition of managed services is. It's the outsourcing of some of the traditional IT tasks that are required to keep applications available and performing well. So one of the things, there's 10 reasons here in the bottom left-hand corner here that I found online that, what are kind of, again, the drivers behind organizations adopting managed IT services. And I won't touch on all of them, but, a few key points or key reasons are, to improve security. Obviously, security is a huge factor in companies. There's the potential for data loss, and once the malware and viruses make their way to an organization's network, it causes a lot of issues with company or workers being able to do their task. And so being able to have a CISO or a chief information security officer on staff, some companies aren't able to afford that type of service or that type of caliber of employees. So what they're doing is they're leveraging managed service providers to help offload that risk and help them with their network, protect their network, and ensure that their network is going to be available and, again, protected from security risk. Again, more uptime and system reliability. This goes back to what Rick was saying earlier. Companies want their employees to have access to their applications anytime and anywhere. And so managed IT providers, they can, provide SLAs around these applications and some of the services that they're offering behind it. Sometimes there's cost savings over having in-house IT be able to handle some of these tasks. And then also it also frees up your internal IT staff to do more or work on projects that, basically can provide growth and provide innovation for a company. And so those are some of the key reasons. I found a couple stats that I'd like to, kind of point out here, that right now that 64% of organizations today are using some form of managed services, and that number is expected to grow. In fact, it's expected to grow by the year 2020 to grow to $193 billion, which is a growth rate of about 12.5%. So that number is just going to continue to grow again as more and more applications are being hosted in the cloud, and companies are looking for ways to be more lean and agile and responding to market demands and changes. So again, a lot of our customers are today leveraging these types of services, and so it's important to understand why they're using them, and to in our conversations at least be aware of the fact that there's the ability for us to assist them, and that they're currently using those types of services. The bottom stat, I just wanted to point out that, sometimes when we were talking to clients about managed services, it could be depending on who you're talking to, it could be a bad word. Managed services tends to have a stigma of meaning that you're wanting to cut their IT staff. And really, what these stats kind of point to is that really a lot of these organizations, they're just using a managed service provider to kind of help augment their existing staff. And again, going back to freeing up their staff to work on more profitable and more important projects instead of just doing the day-to-day support and maintenance, ongoing maintenance of those systems and services. So managed services can be a good way for organizations to help free up their staff to do more of those types of tasks. So Sprint managed services, what do we offer? And I know in our prior knowledge sharing sessions, we've kind of touched on managed WAN, SD-WAN, workplace as a service, and hosted voice over IP. And we touched on security. So those are some of the services. I won't get into, the meat and potatoes of exactly what those services are. Again, we touched on those in our prior sessions, but it's important to know that those are all services that, that have been kind of born out of the traditional, managed service, which was traditionally just, doing updates to operating systems, the monitoring and notification. And now services have actually been tagged on to managed services. So those are actually, there's such a thing as managed services as a service. And so when you see these as a service, that's basically an extension of managed services. And so those can sometimes be used synonymously, but they are kind of different. So just to kind of point that out, that they do kind of tie into each other, but they're not exactly the same. So In terms of our support structure from Sprint side, we have 3 different tier models for managed services. And we have a basic level, which is the M&S support, which is basically just monitor and notify customers of any performance degradation or any issues that we see across their network. The next tier that we offer is the collaborative model, which is what HNTB, the SD-WAN deal that we recently won, that's the support model that they chose, because they have a IT staff that's able to handle a lot of these tasks and the day-to-day operations, but they, in terms of rolling out this large project, they didn't want to tie up their staff with doing the deployment and doing the configuration and all that. So they've leaned on Sprint to help them, assist them with getting these sites turned up and deployed. And then after that, it'll basically be kind of it'll kind of move more towards that basic monitor and notify. And then when the need arises, HNTB would, be able to create a ticket or open a ticket and have our support staff assist them, on any other types of requests or issues that they might have. And then the third model is the M&S Complete, which basically means that Sprint does everything for the client, including the design, implementation, the ongoing support, and the notifications, trouble ticket resolution. So again, that's kind of the all-in model for some customers that don't want to have their IT staff handling the day-to-day operations or the tasks associated with the services that they have with us. Then Sprint M&S team can help them do those tasks.
So, Chris, on that, yep, real quick. So M&S for Sprint wireline has been around for a long time,
right?
But with our wireline having decreased, as far as the number of customers that have it, the revenue that's generated by it, right? The margins, I'm sure, are a little slimmer than they used to be. We got out of certain product sets. Now you've got cloud. I mean, how does M&S and the staffing of M&S and the information, the workflow that they have, how is it now compared to our competitors? Because, as you know, like Gartner Magic Quadrant, list companies that do managed services and things like that. Sprint used to be, I think, viewed pretty highly, right, in that area. Where are we now?
So I tried to pull some awards and recognition on Sprint M&S, and the only thing I could find was going back to 2014. So probably to your point, I don't know how we're perceived in today's environment as a M&S provider, but obviously we were one of the very first carriers to provide managed services. So we have a history of over 20 years. I know we've won many industry awards and received recognition, but I have not seen anything, in recent date, any kind of recognition around our M&S team. So I couldn't answer that for you, but hopefully, I know that we have a good history there, and that's one of the key selling points for Sprint is the fact that we offer these 3 different tiers. So basically, whatever a client needs, as much support as they need or as little support, we can basically provide that to the customer.
Mazzoni, do you have any?
Pardon?
Hey, do you have any thoughts on this? Because I know when you were SD manager, you were probably working pretty close with some of those folks.
Is it still all headquartered in Reston, our managed services group? I mean,
I know we have. I think they're in Kansas City, or at least some of them are.
Okay.
Yeah, the NOC is still in Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just know from Workplace as a Service that because TeamMD had purchased that we had managed services. I really can't comment on how we're perceived. I know there was complication, but that was because a call tower was interjected in between to run Skype for Business. So other than that, I really am not privy to any recent press or anything on managed services.
Yeah.
I just know that, at the time when we had large accounts, that we did have good managed services, and then we did, have good teams and good network. I mean, we were highly thought of in the wire.
And I guess, from a present day perspective, I mean, I guess the best indicator of how our M&S team is perceived is with HNTB. I mean, we've to date basically rolled out over 30 sites, so it's 30 different HNTB site locations. The customer's happy. They're willing to do a case study video for us. Joe and I were just talking about that earlier this morning. So again, I think, to have a customer be willing, this early on in the process and not have their entire network fully deployed, but be willing to make a statement for us, I think that speaks volumes for, what our entire account and support teams have been able to do for the customer.
It would be interesting to know how many of our customers have managed services versus 4 or 5 years ago. Or since we started this TDM push to get everybody off TDM, because you think about the resources, and if they have a lot of resources and we don't have as many customers, it may be even better.
Right.
Well, I just got a note back from Jason Groves. I asked him, we did M&S for Energizer back in 2003 when I owned the account, 2003, 2004, and we rolled it out to over 120 international locations, domestic and international locations, and they are still on Sprint M&S today, and it's going well.
And that's the thing about M&S, when you sell managed services, it makes your client more sticky, and so they tend to stay with that provider once you've got your hooks into their network and you're more on a day-to-day basis really helping support their network and their operations. I mean, that makes it for a good customer, and they tend to stay, and these are customers that will renew, and they sign 3-year or more contracts, and so it's good for Sprint, and it's obviously good for the customer to have that type of support model.
And one of the trends that I've been seeing over the years is what I'll call boutique M&S shops popping up. Everybody is moving towards managed services, and they're carving out a niche in the marketplace, which does at some point impact Sprint or AT&T, the big shops. And you can look at SD-WAN and how what we would look at as in the old days, you would just call them kind of a reseller of services or an agent, and suddenly they've become managed service shops and carving out a niche in the marketplace that I think is impacting our growth in that area.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving along. And so what are the key benefits of Sprint Managed Solutions? So again, we can support our customers in over 156 countries. Again, and we can help them reduce cost savings so that they're not having to hire additional IT overhead. We allow them to be more agile and have a better understanding of where their IT budget goes. We can, support SLAs around applications and services so that way they, are ensured a good performance and uptime of those services. We make, the support process simple. We have, again, we've been providing managed services for over 20 years, so we've got a really good support system and processes in place to help from a model perspective. With simple predictive pricing, we can do just one per month device, one monthly recurring cost per device, and we offer 24/7, 365-day support. And then lastly, with the Compass web portal, basically customers are able to have full visibility across their network and be able to open support tickets and see what tickets are being worked on and where those tickets are in the process of being resolved. And so the next topic is CPE. And what is CPE? It is customer premise equipment that basically it kind of goes hand in hand with managed services. A lot of the services that I previously mentioned, like security, the SD-WAN, those are all hardware vendors that we actually work with to provide as a service. And so if you look over to the right, you'll see some names that you might be familiar with. As an example, we're partnered with Cisco, Fortinet from a security standpoint, Cradlepoint from a wireless routing perspective, Velo Cloud is our SD-WAN play, etc. So didn't want to go too much into detail, but just knowing that Sprint is partnered with the top tier providers in the industry for networking and security hardware, we can provide this as a monthly recurring cost as a service instead of the customer having to go out and spend a large CapEx spend for this equipment. They can now have it as a predictable monthly recurring cost. Any questions?
Chris, since you're into this real quick, I'll just throw in Edward Jones uses a Fortinet router, and for their wireless backup, they're putting in Cradlepoint. And so we're putting our SIM cards into a Cradlepoint, and we're putting Magic Box into some locations. Just so you guys know, if you get into this going forward, there seems to be some conflicts between Fortinet, Cradlepoint, and Magic Box, right? So as my customers trying to get into their routers, they're having some kind of conflicts, and we don't know, but we're kind of thinking that the Cradlepoint, the Fortinet router and some of the settings on that and the Magic Box aren't playing well together.
That's good to know. Yeah.
More to come later.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. And so the last slide I have here is, basically where is CPE, the future of CPE going? And we're not there today. Sprint is not, but a lot of other carriers and providers are starting to provide what's known as universal customer premise equipment. And if you look on the on the picture here, you can see off to the left a kind of a stack of hardware. And where the future of CPE is going is now providers are starting to buy and offer white box, servers and hardware where they can quickly deploy images of different services and different multi-vendor solutions onto one appliance and be able to quickly turn those up using like a zero-touch deployment. So they're able to push these images of those different vendor services onto this appliance. They're a lot cheaper. It takes less time to get that type of hardware, and they're more scalable. And so that is where the future of CPE is going. And I know AT&T is currently, they have, Rick, you were sharing with me.
It's Flexware.
And so that's like their networking, security. What else is on that? Do you know?
Well, they also are doing, traditional POTS line, telephone line replacement, shifting it to Wi-Fi. Scott, it really is addressing exactly what the picture that you just described with Edward Jones. That's exactly what a single box solution is providing to avoid those type of conflicts between different pieces of hardware at the customer prem.
Yeah, and they're supporting both the standard architecture or software architecture as well as the open. So sometimes that open source capability allows people to integrate different services much easier and be able to quickly scale out.
Well,
Yeah,
our
and
competitors
another.
are in
Go
the
ahead.
carrier environment. Are the Verizons and the AT&Ts and the CenturyLinks doing this universal CPE today?
Yeah,
AT&T
AT&T is for sure
yeah.
with a box called Flexware. I'm not 100% certain if I know Verizon has touched on it. I'm not sure if CenturyLink is currently deploying this similar type of device, but that's where they're all headed. Absolutely.
And when are we headed that direction?
Don't have an idea.
Yeah, I have not heard anything about it, but that's, again, this is where things are going, so I would imagine that we've got to be at least, evaluating this as an option to start, being able to quickly deploy our customers, because right now, as an example with VeloCloud, we're having to wait, a couple weeks on, for the hardware to be shipped from a distributor. But if we were able to get an image of, a virtual machine image of the VeloCloud, the operating system and the brains of it, we could actually quickly push that image out to just a white box server and be able to quickly, deploy that system at a client's edge.
Yeah.
And so, anyone have any questions on this slide or comments? If not, I think that leads us to questions and comments, Q&A. Anything?
Well, I kind of asked mine along the way.
Yeah, no, thanks, Scott. Yeah.
Two things. First, you had Workplace as a Service on there. It's my understanding we're sunsetting that product.
The Workplace as a Service?
Yeah.
I have not heard that. It's listed, obviously, in our playbook and on the website. Has anyone else heard that?
I have not. It could be happening as we're rolling out Smart UC, and which is going to replace many of those components. But I haven't heard of a sunsetting.
Yeah, originally Smart UC was just take the place of call tower and fix a lot of those issues that were inherent in Workplace as a Service. But my understanding is it's being sunsetted.
It'll be replaced with something different, probably.
Because my
customer
similar. That's the thing by Pete Foreman, my understanding, but maybe they've changed their minds, so that would be interesting. Second, I heard through my former engineering world that this has been put on hold, the Convergence training. Is that true?
I've not heard anything about that.
The Convergence trainings that they do, that the wireline team's been putting on?
Or the Convergence model, Dave. I'm not sure what you're...
Both.
Oh, yeah. I haven't heard any of that.
Hold,
so.
Or it's been delayed. I don't know. Just curious. So. If anybody heard that.
I've not heard anything about that. No.
All right. Yeah, if you could find out about Workplace as a Service from your end, that would be great. And I'll check with Pete, too, for our next call. So.
All right.
Good. Well, thank you very much. That was really, really insightful. Thanks so much for putting that together. Any other questions?